Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Joshua Boren? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Joshua Kenneth Boren was born on May 11, 1979, in Provo, Utah. This town is about 45 miles south of Salt Lake City. When he was 5 years old, Joshua's father brought an end to his own life. His mother started seeing other men and experienced difficulty regulating her intake of substances. One of his mother's new boyfriends allegedly mistreated Joshua in terrible ways. Joshua was angry with his mother because she did not prevent him from being harmed. When he was a teenager, Joshua went to live with his grandparents. In 1997, he graduated from Eureka High School. Joshua went to Webster State University, where he met a woman named Kelly, and they became romantically involved. Kelly had been born on July 21, 1981 in England. She originally lived in Northampton, but at some point moved to the United States. On June 4, 2005, Joshua and Kelly married. They went on to have 2 children, a son named Jaden in May 2006 and a daughter named Haley in July 2008. By this time, Joshua had decided to pursue a career in law enforcement. He had graduated from the police academy in 2006. Initially, he worked as a Utah County deputy sheriff and an animal control officer. Eventually, he was hired as a police officer at the Linden Police Department. Linden is just north of Provo. The Boren family lived in a house in the town of Spanish Fork, which is just south of Provo. Their house was on North 630 West Street. Starting sometime around 2011, Joshua put Ambien in protein shakes that his wife consumed. After she was rendered unconscious, he conducted an assault of a sexual nature against her. This happened 4 or 5 times over the course of 2 years. Joshua video recorded the assaults, and in 2013, Kelly found the recordings. This led to the couple separating in September of that year. Joshua moved into an apartment, but visited the Boren family house on a regular basis and frequently interacted with the members of his family. He started seeing a psychotherapist for an addiction to sex and for marriage counseling. For a while, Joshua and Kelly may have been trying to repair their marriage. For example, they went on date nights and even took a family vacation to Disney World in December 2013. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On January 16, 2014, Joshua was supposed to start his shift at the Linden Police Department at 10 p.m., but he didn't show up. Officers were sent to the Boren family house, arriving at about 11 p.m. They noticed that Joshua's patrol vehicle was parked in the driveway, along with his private vehicle and his wife's vehicle. The lights were on in the house, but no one answered the door. Through the windows, the police saw blood on a carpet and spent cartridge cases. They made entry through the unlocked front door and discovered 5 people dead in the house. 34-year-old Joshua Boren, his 32-year-old wife Kelly, his 7-year-old son Jaden, his 5-year-old daughter Haley, and his 55-year-old mother-in-law Marie King. Here's what the police found during the course of their investigation. All 5 individuals died from gunshot wounds. The killer was Joshua Boren. He used a police-issued .40 caliber Glock semi-automatic pistol to carry out the murders on the evening of January 16. He placed the bodies of his wife and children on the bed in the master bedroom before turning the weapon on himself. Joshua's mother-in-law was found in another bedroom. There were no drugs or alcohol in Joshua's system, and he had no history of violence. He was being treated for his addiction to sex at the time of his death, and he had a history of heavy substance use. The night before the murders, Kelly and Joshua exchanged a series of heated text messages, which made it clear they did not intend on staying married. Kelly brought up the assaults that Joshua had conducted using the Ambien. She told him that she hated her life because of him, and he killed a part of her. She did not want to live in fear, hate, and anger. On the morning of January 16, Kelly responded to Joshua calling her a bad mother by saying that she was going to take the kids away from him. Joshua replied, "Don't involve the kids. They are innocent." The argument between Kelly and Joshua appeared to calm down somewhat. Joshua agreed to pick up the children later and drop them off at the family house. About 45 minutes before his shift ended, Joshua searched the internet for two terms. The first was America's most brutal serial killers. The second was the word narcissism. Just before 6 p.m. on January 16, Joshua sent his final text message. The recipient was his mother. Joshua wrote, quote, "I hope you are having a good day. Have a long and healthy life," unquote. The state's theory of the crime was straightforward. Joshua murdered his family because he was upset about losing his wife and children. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Joshua Boren was described as a very troubled individual who liked to play pranks and had an intimidating voice. Many people who knew Joshua noticed that he had an explosive temper. Kelly had told her friends that she was frightened of him and tired of his anger. Joshua was typically able to keep his emotions contained, but when he failed to do so, his behavior was frightening. One person who knew Joshua said, quote, "When Josh snaps, he is uncontrollable," unquote. Joshua had a deep resentment toward his mother because she failed to protect him from one of her boyfriends. For many years, he tried to get past the hatred he had for his mother, but he was unable. At a family gathering in December of 2013, the month before the murders, there was a confrontation between Joshua and his mother. Witnesses said that Joshua had an evil look in his eyes. He flew into a rage and said to his mother, quote, "I'm just like you, Mom. I sweep everything under the rug," unquote. Before being hired as a police officer, Joshua admitted that he was a very heavy drug user in the past. He confessed to using marijuana, methamphetamine, mushrooms, LSD, and cocaine. In addition, he admitted to engaging the services of a sex worker. A fellow police officer became concerned about Joshua's behavior and told him to see a mental health counselor. Joshua responded that there was someone else that lived inside him. Item number 2. Despite the astounding number of negative characteristics that people observed in Joshua, there were those who thought of him as a great guy. Some of his colleagues believed that he was an outstanding police officer. His acquaintances described Joshua as an excellent father and a big teddy bear. Item number 3. At the time of the murders, Joshua was being treated by a psychotherapist for marital problems and an addiction to sex. The therapist described him as a 3-year-old boy stuck in a big man's body. This is consistent with the theory that Joshua was immature and had anger problems. As part of the therapeutic process, Joshua kept a journal. He wrote about his obsession with sex, indicating that he regularly fantasized about people he saw. He also fantasized about drugging his wife and other women and having sex with them. Throughout much of his life, he engaged in what was described as inappropriate sexual activity. This brings me to item number 4. Kelly was quite disturbed by the offenses that Joshua had committed against her, but she didn't want his behavior to be publicly known out of fear that it would hurt his career. Despite her desire to contain this information, she told Joshua's therapist and other people. According to the police, by the time of the murders, rumors about Joshua's behavior were spreading quickly. It was only a matter of time before his criminal behavior would be exposed. Item number 5. In the months leading up to the murder, Kelly was having an affair with a man who she met at her gym. This makes it seem like her attempts at reconciliation with Joshua may have been insincere. Kelly and her lover exchanged about 13,000 text messages. Some of the messages were exchanged on the day of the murders. Item number 6. Some people believe that Joshua used his powers of manipulation to get hired as a police officer, but I don't think he did. He was honest about his substance use and other undesirable behavior. Technically, Joshua was never convicted of a crime, but of course he did commit several crimes. The police defended their decision to hire him, noting that just because someone committed crimes in the past didn't mean they should be excluded from police work. If the police excluded every applicant who had ever committed a crime, there would be a massive shortage of police officers. The real failure of the police in this case wasn't about discriminating based on past offenses, but rather how they missed the obvious mental health factors. They dismissed Joshua's repeated and heavy use of substances as inconsequential. He should have never had access to a firearm, yet the government handed him one, which he then used in the murders. Item number 7. The crime that Joshua committed, the killing of multiple family members, is referred to as familicide. It is relatively rare, but it has been studied by researchers. Here are some of the characteristics of this offense identified in the research literature. The vast majority of the offenses are committed by a white male between the ages of 30 and 50 against a romantic partner of a similar age. 79% of the women murdered have been mistreated by the killer prior to the offense. A firearm is the most common choice of weapon. The killer often has cluster B personality pathology, that is, antisocial, narcissistic, borderline, and histrionic personality features. The killer had the tendency to dominate in his romantic relationships, consume substances, maintain a patriarchal perspective, and had a history of being mistreated during childhood. There are several possible motives for this type of crime, with the three most common being financial, a need for control, and revenge. With financial, the killer believed that he was protecting his family from poverty, like there was some type of financial distress and he didn't know how to get out of it, so he thought that his family not existing would be a better route to go. With the need for control, the killer was threatened by separation and killed his family while thinking something like, "If I can't have them, no one will." Here we see the killer is unable to separate himself from his family. He thinks that everyone is in one unit. They either live together or die together. And with revenge, the offender was angry at his lover for having an affair. When looking specifically at the case of Joshua Boren, he had many of the common characteristics for a familicidal offender. Now moving to my final item, number 8. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Joshua was immature, impulsive, irresponsible, self-centered, insecure, vulnerable, vindictive, sadistic, cold, callous, and had a sense of entitlement. He was obsessed with sex and had mistreated his wife in line with his sadistic tendencies. As a police officer, Joshua regularly humiliated criminals who committed crimes involving sex. He wanted everybody to know how they were horrible people. In his journal, he admitted that he was just like them. Joshua was a criminal as well as being a hypocrite. Joshua's life was a lie. He was running around pretending to be one of the good guys, but he was actually the type of offender that he hated most. In the time leading up to the murders, Joshua was exposed to several other stressors. He was going to be in a custody dispute. He was worried about being fired and going to prison for what he had done to his wife, and his wife was having an affair. Motivated by a need for control and a desire for revenge, Joshua decided to kill his entire family. He knew that what he was doing was wrong, and he was aware it was connected to the construct of narcissism. That's why he searched the term narcissism right before the murders. In this act, he reminded the world about the dangers of narcissism and reinforced how a narcissist doesn't necessarily have the insight to understand their own personality traits. Those are my thoughts in the case of Joshua Boren. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.